So thanks for joining this morning or this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining. We're going to run through our P6-Scrubber, and this is our latest release. And we've got some pretty interesting new features that I think you're going to like. Sue likes them, and if Sue likes them, then that's a good start. So I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm the CEO of Emerald Associates, and I'm joining you here from Calgary, Alberta. It's a cold spring day, so it's not the best. And we've got Sue Hopkins, who's going to joining us as well. And she's going to do the hard work. She's going to show the software. And she's joining us from Wyoming. So how's it there, Sue? Hopefully better than here.
It is windy and chilly.
Okay. We got the same. So there you go. So let's talk about some of the typical struggles that we have in using P6. So oftentimes when we're on a larger project and we might have collaborators from other parts of the world, we either choose to deploy an environment where everyone's sharing, or oftentimes we don't have that luxury, and we have to work with remote users, maybe providing updates with XCRs typically. So that's probably the most common way people are dealing with that. Now, that's not to say you can't have it set up in a different way, which is great, but we don't always have that opportunity. So we find importing XCRs is still pretty much the most common. Some people may be starting to use XMLs, but often it's still the XCRs. So I thought I'd just ask, how are your projects dealing with bringing in schedules, and how do you deal with cleaning them up? Okay, so that's a pretty common problem, and that's what we're going to try and address here. Import and clean them up, modify the XCR manually. That's a frightening one, but yes, people still do it. And then some of our clients have a secondary scrubbing database that they deal with cleaning it up, making sure it's okay, and then bringing it in to the main production database. So that's a pretty common thing. So what we tried to do here with P6-Scrubber is to try and give you an easier, better, more reliable technique to take an XCR, clean it up, scrub it up, and then bring it into your P6 production and make that a lot easier. Because of course, we don't want our P6 to get polluted with all sorts of codes, user-defined fields, calendars that we don't want. And we don't want it to mess about or overwrite, if you will, some of our key fields and data that we need, especially for corporate reporting. So also what we found is sometimes we have clients that have very specific contract specifications on how the schedule needs to be put together. So you want to make sure that you're also kind of critiquing that. And since we have our P6 QA tool, what we've done is we've embedded a bit of that technology that we had in the QA in the scrubber as well. So we'll run through that. And so what we're finding with the tool is it just makes it easier to keep your database clean. It's not a very hard tool to use, so it's quite easy to learn. You don't have to be a super P6 expert to understand how to use P6-Scrubber. So let's just ask another quick question. I'm always curious to see how much time people are spending cleaning things up. Now, of course, this depends on, of course, on how many projects you have. So we have some clients that have updates every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks for 50 or 60 schedules to do the cleanup, it's quite a bit of work. And that's kind of where the birth of P6 QA came in, and of course, the birth of this tool, the Scrubber. If you're updating less often or have a less large program, it might be a lesser effort. But even with the responses people were able to provide just now, it's still quite a bit of time each month. And anything you can do to reduce the the time spent on what I would say not the most productive work would be amazing. Okay, so that was our objective here. And let me ask another quick question here. How often are you importing? So that's also something I'm always interested in. Are you doing these weekly? Do you do them monthly, or just do them ad hoc? So it looks like a bit of everything. And of course, that's not that uncommon. It really depends on your sort of program and how the team is collaborating with external sources usually. Okay, great. Thanks for answering those. So let's get into. I'll do a quick explanation of how the tool works, and then I'll turn it over to Sue, and she'll give us a run through, and we'll give some focus on the new features that we've added in this version. Okay, so really what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the XCR, and the XCR can have one or more than one project at a time in it. And we want to make sure that what we're importing is meeting our quality assurance standards, okay? We want to make sure any unwanted data that they might have in their database, that we don't bring it in. And we want to make sure that anything that's missing or incorrect, maybe nomenclature is a little different, we want to control that. So the way that we do it is you choose the file that you want to bring in, you marry it up to a definition, and that's basically all your settings as to what you want to do. And we can have many definitions that can be for me, or I can share them to my team, or the admin can create them and share them to the users. Okay, so we'll touch on that functionality. And then you scrub the file. Now, when you scrub the file, we give you the results. We give you some preemptive information, but we also give you the results. And the results will let you know whether things were coming through correctly, or if there were any things that needed to be scrubbed. So you kind of get a report that lets you know what actually occurred. You can vet it, make sure you're happy with it, and then you can take the newly created upload file and upload it up. So the things that we're checking, of course, are the things that we struggle with, the global type data generally. So user-defined fields, codes. These are at the project WBS activity resource level, so at all the levels that they exist in P6. We let you take a look at cost accounts and resources, roles, and calendars, okay? And then those definitions get saved, and then you can reuse them on an ongoing basis. So if you're getting a schedule from a contractor every week, for example, you would reuse the definition. Anything new will be kind of highlighted for you, and then you can update the definition, and off you go. Okay, so it's quite quick and quite easy to work with. We also take care of some of those straggler things that you may still have going on with your XCRs, the POBS and the risk types. And I mentioned calendars already. So we take care of calendars at all the levels. And we have a few additional validation bits and pieces on IDs and names that Sue will highlight for you. Okay. So what we tried to do was tackle the main things that people struggle with, and give you the ability to manage those and save them in definitions, and then off you go. Okay, so we're going to jump in. We're going to take a look at how it works, and I think I've touched everything, so we'll go ahead and hand it over to Sue. Okay, let me give it off to Sue. I'm transferring it now.
Okay, and now I need to share my screen so you can actually see the tool in action. All right, so you should be seeing my P6-Scrubber login screen. Now, the functionality that is fairly new in this tool right now is something that's really exciting for me. I think it works very well, and it's really nice. Is that you can now hook up P6-Scrubber to individual databases so that you can actually see what is in your database right now and determine what you want to do with those incoming pieces from your XCR. So I've selected my database and I'm going to log in.
Yeah, so just for those who may not know what the previous functionality was, so we also have a cloud offering, and that really is could be quite good for someone who's maybe a consultant who's working with many clients, and they receive the XCRs and they want to scrub what we call off when they're offline. Okay, so this is what we also call our online mode. So we've got both options available now. Prior to this, we only had the offline mode working. Go for it, Sue.
Okay. So I'm going to be working in online mode for the demonstration today. Um, as you come into P6-Scrubber, you'll notice that we have, our little pieces of what types of things and what levels you may be dealing with some of the information. So codes, UDFs, as Nicole mentioned, we've also got calendars down here, as well as some resource remapping and roles and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start going down the line here. There's two ways that you can basically set up your definition. Now, the first way is going to be just doing it from scratch. Let's say I just want to manually set things up. I know that I've got some items that are coming in and I want to remap them, I want to keep them, etc. So you certainly can do that. And by doing that, you're going to want to go and you're going to want to visit each one of these and put some information on these. Now, the first thing I want to show you is it validating and checking a pattern against an ID or a name. And this is available at both the activity ID level as well as the project ID level. So if you had set out for your contractors a certain format that they needed to submit these items with, you can actually check these. It's not going to change anything, but it's going to tell you, hey, these ones don't conform or they do conform. So in order to do that on all of these modules is you want to enable that module. That means that you're telling P6-Scrubber to actually run this particular validation on it. Now, in defining a pattern, we tried to make it very easy. And in my case, I'm going to do a simple pattern. So if I select that and I click in, it's going to say, okay, what's your first piece of information? So I know that I have two letters that are going to come in. So I'm going to say two letters and they should be uppercase. That's what I've told my contractor. And so then I can apply it. Well, after those two letters, I need to have 5 digits, 5 numbers. So I'm going to go and say my next characters should be 5 numbers. And then I'm going to have a dash. So I'm going to say, here's my dash. And then after that, it can be anything. So I can go out and I can say any character, and I don't have a finite number of characters that need to be there. So I can put 0 here, and it's going to take an unlimited number of characters after my 2 letters, my 5 digits, and my dash. Now, we've tried to make it easy for you to test this to make sure that what you have defined is actually correct. And you can see I don't have anything in there, so it's saying it does not match. I'm sorry, but what you have here does not match. So if I did select one, I can see now that I do have a pattern that matches. This is this is one of my project IDs that I actually deal with, and it is going to mark it correctly if it does not, or if it matches up. If I had selected something else with text in it, let's say here, it's going to let me know it's not valid. So fairly easy with those IDs and names to get those set up. Now, if I go into my codes, I'm going to go in here. Um, Again, the same thing. You would enable and then you would start adding. Well, the problem here is you're going to have to type. So let's say, for instance, I want to say I have a code type named client. Well, I've got a warning and it says, okay, I need to select this action. What do I want to do if client comes in with my XCR? Well, I want to keep it. Well, where do I want to map that to? So if I come in and I open this up, I can see that I do have some code types that match with this. So I want to say, okay, client. And then I could populate the dictionary with that. Now, I could take and I could go out to P6 itself and I could copy and paste my values in there so that they were all set up. Or, um, in fact, let's do that. Let me do that with an activity code. I'm going to set up an activity code, and that activity code is going to be called vendor. I've got my warning that says I need to say what I want to do with it, so I'm going to keep it. And then I'm going to go and select my vendor that is in my P6. And then I want to put in those values that I actually have in P6. So I can go over and I can do this bulk edit. That's going to allow me to copy and paste those in. So I can open those up. I can go out to my P6 and I can see where I have my vendor as well as my values here. So I can say I want to copy these and then take them over and paste them in. Now I want to remove that first row because it's actually headers, and I don't want to include that last uh, column there because I don't need those that number or those color values in there. Then I can apply, and I've got these all here. Now this is all fine and good. However, it gets to be a little cumbersome selecting all these actions and all of these items in here every time when I'm trying to build this. So an easier way to do this is, first of all, I'm going to start a new definition. So I'm going to say I want a new definition here. It's going to X everything out. It's going to take all my changes away. And then it's going to go in and I am going to go in and I'm going to actually import a file that's going to give me those values that are in it. So I'm going to grab a file out here and import it. Now, P6-Scrubber is going to take all the information that it handles and bring it into my definition area for me. It's going to give me some information here about what came in, and then I can say I can apply it. So now I've got some pretty good information here. See where my client is? That came in clean. Everything's good with it. It matches everything, etc. Now it looks like I've got some issues with my district. Well, when I take a look, I can see when I hover over it that it says I have a dictionary validation that failed. So I want to open up that dictionary here and I want to take a look at what's there. Well, I have a value coming in that's called the DIST5. Well, obviously it says it's not in P6. So what I can do is I can come and delete that out and see what actually is in my dictionary. So apparently we call this D5. And when I select it, I've got my match going here. Now, I still have an issue with my client type. So when I look at my client type and I hover over it, it says either select a matching name or say that we don't need it to match. So if I can go into here and take a look, I can see that I don't have a client type. Well, I don't want to bring it in either. I don't want to pollute that. I don't want to bring that in to my database. So I want to say that I want to scrub that. And now it's telling me that I can't have a blank name unless I say it is okay. So with my X here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my X and I'm going to say, I acknowledge that this does not have a match and I do indeed want to scrub it out and say okay. So now I've dealt with everything. I've got a clean, uh, everything is clean in the way of matching or in my database or being scrubbed out. Now, if I were to use this definition again on a different file, and I had some extra code types come in, I want to decide what I want to do with it. So in my case, I want to tell it I want to scrub all those extra codes out. And again, I do want to enable this. Now, if I go to my UDFs, again, I can see what is not working properly, what is not matching to my database. So again, hover over it, and it's telling me it doesn't have that submitted file name in there. I could decide what I wanted to do with it, and I actually don't need this one, so I'm going to scrub it out, and I'm going to say it's okay. That I don't have. I actually did that wrong. It automatically sorts by here by the warnings. If I wanted to keep it in a certain sort area, I could do it this way also. So I'm going to go to my so I've want to say yes, this is okay. I want to scrub it out, and then I have my submittal date. Well, I don't have this obviously in my system. I have it called something else. It's called submitted date. So I can choose that. And now I'm clean on my uh, UDFs for my project. Now, I also have the option up here on whether I want to scrub extra UDFs, and I can do it by subject area. So I can say I don't want any new WBSs to come in. I don't want any more of those UDFs. I want just what's in my system. Now, going down to resources, because activities does have, codes and UDFs, and it works very much the same. Oh, except for, let me actually, let's do something different here. I am going to look at my codes. So I want to enable it. And when I scroll over, it says that I don't have a match for my discipline here. Well, I would still want to keep it. I still want it in my file. However, what I want to do is I want to actually roll it down to the project level. So I'm going to keep it within my file, but I'm going to make it a project activity code instead. So I've said I want to keep it, and I want to take a look at what's out there, because now I have some issues. It's saying, hey, these aren't out here. These particular values aren't out here as a project activity code. So I can say, yes, these are okay to come in. And let's say this XYZ is not, that's not valid. That's not something, that's a mess up there. I don't want to bring that in because it's not okay. So then I could say I wanted to scrub that particular one. Then in my discipline, again, I want to say, okay, yes, I do want to roll this down. And so I'm going to tell it I do want to roll it down. And then on my work type, again, it's telling me my dictionary validation failed. And I can go in and take a look at those. So this one I know is not valid. So I want to pick a valid one. And I know that this should be ER. Now it's telling me the description doesn't jive. So I want to make sure that my description is actually jiving with what the value is that I selected. So if I delete that out, it's automatically going to tell me the description that goes along with that value. Now, in the case of my the ZZ here, I don't want to keep that. I want to scrub that out. It's not really a good value, and so I want to take it out of there. So we can roll down activity codes from the global level down to the project level. Now, on our resources, we don't always have the resources that in our database that our contractor, say for instance, is using. So it's come all the resources have come in, and you can see I have several pages of them. But on this first page, I noticed that they have several civil engineering ones that I actually have a different node, a different tree to put this in. So I want to combine them because I only have one civil engineering resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of here, and I know that it starts out with ENG, but it's just CI in this case. So I select that, and the new name matches, so that's good. And I also want to do the same with these ones that have the EN. I want to change that. It's telling me my new name does not match, so I'm going to go select the correct name. And then I'm going to also remap the drafting one. So these are all going to be combined into one resource. Now we've also dealt with units of measure on our resources. A lot of times what you're getting with a unit of measure is not necessarily how you have your units of measure defined within your database. Now, we have cubic meters in our database. However, we don't call them, or it's not defined as this. So I'm going to go pick the correct one, and I'm going to make sure that this one, that cubic meters, is actually mapped to the right one that exists in my database. Now let's take a look at calendars. Calendars come in and we have our global calendars. So we can decide what we want to do with our global calendars. Now, I personally don't know that any of these calendars match my global calendars, even if I do have them out there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll them down because I don't want them overwriting and polluting the calendars that already exist at my global level. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll these down. And then in the case of this contract that says Jefferson on it, I want to roll these down, but there is a project calendar that actually takes the place of these two Jefferson calendars. There's actually two project calendars. Now, what P6-Scrubber has done for me is it's also brought in my calendar names for the P6 for this particular project. So it tells me what project it belongs to. I can go in, whoops, that didn't do what I wanted it to. I can go in, let me try it again. I can copy this, and then I can go, helps if I go to the right place. And then I can go and I can say, okay, I want this to roll this down, but I want to roll it down to that. Nope, and that's the wrong one. I want to roll it down to the Rapley one. And the other one is just the 7-day calendar. So I can go ahead and change that to 7-day. And then it's going to remap these down. Now, one caveat with calendars at the global level is if those calendars are used on a resource that is included in this particular file, and that resource is assigned to a task dependent activity, that global calendar will be maintained at the global level. It's going to roll it down, but it's also going to maintain it at the global level because I don't want my resource dependent activities to change if I roll it down. And so the durations remain the same. So it's going to keep that global calendar. That's the one place that it's not going to completely take that global calendar out of your XCR. Now, I also have the ability to look at my resource calendars. So I see that they have a resource calendar called Standard 5-Day Resource Only. And I have a calendar that is like that, however, or that is the same calendar. However, it is actually in my database just called Standard 5-Day Resource. So I'm able to remap that to the calendar I have in my particular P6 instance. I can also remap roles. So let's say, for instance, I don't want to use this EAI. I have a different tree called SCR. And of course, I want to go and make sure that my names match. And anywhere that I have EAI, I'm going to go and change these to have them remap. And those are going to remap for me. Oh, I guess I should enable it. And the last thing is our cost accounts. These all look like good cost accounts to me. They are all mapping to what I have in my P6 environment. And so I'm good to keep all of those the way that they are. Now I have things set up for my definition. I am ready to save this. So I'm going to go down and save and load this definition. And I'm going to say I want to save it as. It's going to then give me the ability to say what I want to save it as. And let's just call this example. And if I needed to, I could put some notes and things in here. Now, with this particular version that hooks up to the database, when I sign in, I am actually signing in with my credentials from P6. If I don't have this hooked up to P6, I do have the availability to save to particular teams. So if I have several users that I have defined as a part of a team, I could save it just for those members to see. I could also make it a global definition, or I can make it a personal definition. In this case, it's going to be a global definition regardless. So that's why you don't see those options here. If I were in the other version that was offline, I would have those options so that you can kind of lock those down a bit. So if I try to apply this and save this, I can apply. Now it's going to go out and it's going to save it, and everything is good in my world. Now, if, for instance, I had something that I had not dealt with, say I had a yellow in any one of these topics here, it's not going to save it for me. It's going to flag it, and then it's going to say, hey, this doesn't work because you have to deal with these several pieces of information. So in here, I can see that I do have some that are done, and for some reason it didn't kick it back out to me, and I'm not sure. Let's see. Let me try again. There we go. So it says there was an error. We have some errors in our activity UDF types module. So I can close, I can go to my UDFs type module, I can fix my information that I need on here, and then I can go back and I can save it again. And now I'm good to go.
So while you're there, Sue,
Sure.
we're getting a lot of questions in the chat, which is great.
Okay, awesome.
So one of the questions was, how do you save a definition for different projects? So if you could just go back to that definition saving, that would be good.
Absolutely. So you can see I have several definitions out here. So I have one for my client ABC that's different than my one for client DEF. I have my one for client XYZ that's different from those other two. Now, if I were to come in and I wanted to run one that was already defined, I would select that definition, and I'm going to tell P6-Scrubber to load that definition up. It's going to take that definition, it's going to bring it in, and so that I can see what that definition actually involved and what it had. Now I'm ready to use that to scrub one of my XCRs.
Yeah. So then you would choose the file with the import.
Correct.
And then it would let us know if something's different from, the last time you used this, which might have been one week ago, 1 month ago, or 1 year ago, right?
Right. But
Okay.
I would have to load this and then import that new file.
Yeah.
So that's how it would then come in and show me. In fact, I'm not sure. Let me see if I can. Actually didn't have that prepared, but let me see if this one will do it for me.
Yeah.
Let's see if we import this with this particular definition done. Okay, so it looks like I have a new resource and I have some code values.
Right.
So I had 2 new things come in. So let's just go down to my resources. And as I go through, and it's very similar, so I'm surprised that there is a resource out there that came in. And I do believe that what came in was my ones that I remapped. And
okay.
so anyway, I'm sorry it didn't come in, but it'll have
fine.
a new little key here. It'll have a little piece that says new. And I
Okay.
think we saw that when we added like a definition here. So if I open this, or if I add, okay, I'm getting messed up here. Let me see if I can add here. There we go. You can see that it says new. That's
Yeah.
what it's going to, that is going to be what comes in new on a file that does not have something defined already within that definition.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So in terms of how this software is sold, it's not sold by user, it's sold by the number of projects you want to scrub. So we have different levels of packages, 5, 100, 250, 500 plus. And that's how we sell it. So it's by the number of projects you want to scrub. And if you run out, you just add more to your subscription. So that's how we sell it. So it's not limited by the number of users. So it's not a user-based product. Okay, so then there were some concerns about combining things. So let's just touch on that.
Sure.
So yes, of course, if you're taking some resources and you're combining them, you don't have to do that. But we do have some clients that don't necessarily want to carry in their master database all the details that maybe the engineering company was carrying. So an owner that wants to understand, let's say, Amex engineering requirements versus Jacobs or so on, they don't necessarily want all the detail. So that's why we have that in there, okay? So you don't, of course, have to use it that way, but we do have some clients that don't want to carry all the detail that the contractor or the engineering company may need for their pieces, okay? So that's why we have that capability of combining. And so that's why that's there. But of course, you don't have to necessarily use it. Okay, perfect. So I did mention that if you're worried about claims and disputes, that you've modified the schedule. We do an audit report, and Sue hasn't had a chance to show that yet because I jumped in. And that helps you give the backup as to what physically was changed. So she'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so I think I touched on the main points there.
Yep. Okay. So I am ready to scrub now. We've saved our definitions, and I'm ready to scrub using a definition that I already have. So again, we saved this example, and then, but I want to use this demo definition because I'm getting ready to scrub some files from my client that actually uses this definition. So I would load that definition up. And it's going to ask me, if there's changes out there, are you sure you want to append or abandon them, to make sure that if you needed to save something, you can. But I do want to abandon those changes. And then I can go in and I can scrub my file. So I go in and I can go out and select my file. Now, in this case, let's say I have 2 files out here that I need to scrub, or many of them. In my case, I have 2. I can select both of them at the same time. And I can say, select those, and then I can say I want to process those. It's going to go out and it's going to process both of those, one right after the other. So if you had several files that came in that use a particular definition, you can go and do that. You can do those all at once. When they're finished, we have some results that come here. In more details, this is some very high level information. It took 1 point because there was only 1 project involved in this XCR. If I had 2 projects, it would be 2 points because it does go by projects. Now, here is that audit report that we talked about. This is the report that tells us what happened with our P6 scrub. So I can open that. It's an HTML report. And at the very top, it's going to give me some very high level information. It's going to show me on all of my scrubs that I did, what was valid, what had some issues here. So these ones that are blank, those are ones that were not turned on. So they remain blank because I was not actually using that piece. I'm not looking at my activity ID and my activity name. Now, as I scroll down, I can see the detail of each scrub in each topic. So on my project ID, I can see that that came in clean. My project name, I didn't have defined, so anything goes on that one. And so that was clean. Now, when I get to my project code types and their dictionaries, I can see that I had something happen. P6-Scrubber did something to my file. On the gray tables, it shows you what was defined in your definition so that you can refer back to that. And then when you come down to these color pieces here, you can see that I have, okay, a client type that was actually scrubbed out. Then if I scroll down further, like in my UDFs, I have my scrubbed area. I have several that were scrubbed out. I have one that was brought in here. So I've got all that information ready to take a look at to make sure that what occurred is what I anticipated. Okay. So when I'm satisfied, or if I'm not satisfied, I can either go back and change my definition and deal with those pieces that I wasn't quite happy with, or if I'm ready, I can download those results. So when I download the results, I'm going to get two things. Let me just save this here. I'm going to get a scrubbed file, which of course is right here. It's going to be appended with the date and the time that it was scrubbed so that I know that this is my scrubbed file. I'm also going to get an HTML report of the report that we just looked at. That report is going to be helpful, like you said, with claims, or if I wanted to give maybe some feedback to my contractor who sent me that file. Just let them know, hey, I found these, you know, this is what I'm doing to clean your file up. And perhaps you want to coach them as to what they could change. Now, I'm ready to actually import this file. And in the interest of time, I already did import the file. So I've got my import in here, and this is the file that I scrubbed. That's why I use that same definition. I already had one saved instead of the other one. Um, you can see that when I import that in, what you can display are some codes or some UDFs that are actually telling me basically what happened in my P6 scrub. I can see that my project ID was clean. I don't have to worry about that. But I did have my project codes types and my project dictionaries that were altered. So in this case, I can see that District 5 is actually D5 now. So that worked well for me. I also have my schedule status that I remapped that to. It was a type of schedule, remapped it to schedule status, and it brought in that new value there. It's also going to tell me what happened with my UDFs. And if I go into let me click that again, into my notebooks for this, I have another copy of the report that is in there. Now, this is really helpful because it goes with your schedule. Your schedule's right there, and it goes in with it so that you can have it right married to your schedule right in your system. In my activities screen, I can see per activity what has happened. So, looks like my vendor, everything came in clean. You know, everything was defined the way it needed to be, everything mapped well, I'm good. Now, with my work type code, remember I had that ZZ that I said I wanted to remove? Well, now it's warning me, hey, we removed this and it now does not have a value. So that you can see this. If there's something that you need to correct here or what have you, it's alerting you to that fact. Now, over here in my discipline, this is the one I rolled down to the project level. It's telling me that, yes, it did roll it down, and these were not existing at the project level. So it's telling me that. It's saying, hey, these were added. These were added in, and it was a change. And it's also telling me I have some blank ones there. Now, if I go over to my UDFs, I had some that were scrubbed out. So those, it's alerting me to that fact. And my cost accounts look great. So then you can display these easily in a layout and be able to see what actually happened within your P6 scrub. Now, if you don't want to bring these in, because of course the whole point is to not pollute your database. If you feel like you don't want these in there, there is an option to not include them in your XCR file. And where that is done is on your definition when you do it, and it's up here in this general area. So you can see where by default they're turned on. So if you wanted to maybe turn off your indicators, you could do that, and then it would just bring in your notebook. If you wanted to turn them both off, you could do that too. And then you wouldn't have anything extra except for the schedule changes and the information in there. So we have allowed for that if you don't want to bring those in. You will still get your reports, your HTML reports, but it will be outside of P6 there. Now, the last thing I want to show you is the roles and how they remap to the roles and resources. So I have my for my original project here, and of course, I wouldn't normally do this, but for the sake of comparison, I wanted to have that be able to show you this. Is that when I remapped those roles and resources? This is my original up here, and this is my scrubbed one down here. It is, I can say, okay, these I can see very clearly these were changed, and I do have the new values in there. So we've really tried to make dealing with these XCRs and not bringing in that unwanted information in a very concise and easy way to handle it. So if there aren't any further questions, I want to, I guess I'll send it back to Nicole and let her wrap things up for us.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Okay, so we took a look at how the software works, and then we dealt with some of the questions as they were coming through. So let me just do the wrap up. I'm not sure if this is working. Here we go. So we took a look at how you can deal with codes, UDFs, naming, roll downs, merging, as you saw with the resource, and of course the output so that you've got the backup as to what occurred. As Sue said, some of our clients send that to the contractor that they've received the schedule from, particularly if there's quite a few things that don't meet the contract standards. And then you can bring the data in and get that feedback loop in P6. So what we found from our clients' feedback is, of course, the ability to let someone know whether their schedule has some issues right very quickly is important, especially if you're doing a lot of program management with multiple contractors providing schedule updates on a regular basis. We tried to make it very easy to use, very configurable, and of course, with as much user information as quickly as possible back to you as you're working on it. And then it's very easy to update. So if you get a new schedule and they've added some resources, added some calendars, you can see that. So makes it quite easy to work with. And that was the intention, because we do work with clients, especially in our hosted environment, that are doing large program management, and they have a lot of folks touching schedules that are not P6 experts by any stretch. You know, they're field guys, field engineers, or local engineers in charge of their programs, and they need to be able to understand what's happening very easily. So that was really our goal when we started to build this. And the key thing is you don't want to lose any data, as some of the questions were related. You know, when you're in claims, you need to be able to show that nothing was changed, the schedule was as provided, and if there were changes, as you saw, we can give some feedback as to what those were. And it might be a good idea to send that and get agreement that this is the schedule changes that were made, so that you've got that documented as you go. So some of the quotes from our clients is that it's very easy to use, which was the objective, and it just makes it so much easier to manage the P6 database. We have worked with clients where some of their key reporting criteria got messed up when some of the XCRs have come in. So that's what you want to avoid, especially if you got some sort of third-party reporting engine on top of your P6. You don't want that getting polluted or messing up your management dashboards that they're working off of. Okay, so that's another key important piece that we tried to tackle in building this tool out. So if you have more questions, go ahead and chat them in, and hopefully you'll reach out and try and find out more. We tried to make the packages as easy to enter into. So we've got the first package as a 5-pack, and then you can add more schedules on that if you need to. Then we went to a 100-pack on the second layer, then 250 and 500. Those are for those corporate program types, and the pricing is per project, so it's not per user, it's per project. There's an activation fee, and then it's a per project cost. And the definitions, as Sue was showing you, can be made for yourself or shared to teams within your corporate organization. And for the higher packages, you can get the online mode, which lets you share it out to more than one database. Okay, so again, some of our corporate clients, they do have different databases for their P6 teams, so that would be managed as one, but with multiple databases available. Okay, so hopefully you saw something that's interesting for you. Keeping the P6 system clean can be time consuming, especially if you have a lot of importing taking place. So that's just one of our many offerings. And if you're go on our website, you'll see we have a lot of different tools we've built over the years. And that's really come because we've always had a programming team, because our key focus has been on integrations from the very beginning of our 26 years of doing this. And prior to that, I spent 5 years doing claims. So I definitely understand the need for that data integrity in your schedule. So certainly reach out if there's something that looks interesting in some of our other service offerings, and just let us know how we can help. We'll stay on for another few minutes if there are any questions that come to mind, and just let us know. If not, we'll sign off. And again, we will share the recording if all worked out well with the tech, and you can definitely look at it more. If you do want to reach out to Sue, I'll give you her contact info in here. If there's any other questions that you have, definitely feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. And Mario, you were asking where you could download the application. Just send me an email, and I'll get with you, and we'll talk about how you can get it.
Yeah, so we generally don't do trials for our software. It's just the nature of what the software does, because as soon as you try it, you get your result. But we do have a special offer on this scrubber that we can work through. So yeah, reach out, and hopefully you can see how you can benefit from this. I've had to scrub these before, and they can take quite a bit of time. And this is very, very quick. So you're going to definitely see return on investment very quickly with this software tool. Okay, great. Well, it looks like we've covered all the questions, so we'll stay on for another minute. But thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Yes, thank you.